Over the last couple of years, we've seen scandal after scandal.
I do think we have incredible amounts of inefficiency.
There's a lot of waste.
We all are frustrated by similar things.
Attention BART riders.
Hey San Francisco, I'm Ben Kaplan, and this is the podcast where we define who we are and who we want to be. We are San Francisco. Today, we've got a really exciting show lined up. I'm sitting down with four fantastic guests who are all running for District 3 Supervisor. Danny Sauter, Eduard Navarro, Moe Jamil, and Sharon Lai. These are some of the key players shaping the future of one of San Francisco's most important districts. We're going to dive into the big issues: housing, public safety, the local economy, and hear how they plan to make a difference. Each of them brings something different to the table, and I think you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. So let's jump right in and meet the candidates. Why did you decide to run for the Board of Supervisors?
I'm running right now because San Francisco's become a really difficult place for working families to stay.
Right now in San Francisco in 2024, we have a unique opportunity to bring some new, fresh ideas and new faces to City Hall.
This is the most important election on the Board of Supervisors, and I truly believe that.
There's a lot to defend here. It's a model that I haven't seen anywhere else, where you might know somebody for 30 years, not know their last name, not know what they do, but still be good friends, right? That's a very particular thing about San Francisco.
District 3 is a set of incredible neighborhoods, but there's some neighborhoods that are hurting right now.
We're squeezing the middle class out, and I want to make sure that we have competence at City Hall as well as balanced leadership.
I had some great conversations with folks and decided to raise my hand to be part of that new generation of leadership that this city needs.
And I think my practical background allows me to help on a lot of the issues that are at stake currently, for example, housing or issues about public space.
In District 3, we haven't had an open election since 2008.
Neighborhoods like Fisherman's Wharf and Union Square, most of the financial district is in District 3. And these are neighborhoods that are challenged from the pandemic. These are neighborhoods that are challenged from tourism still being slow to recover. So I really see these next 4 years in District 3 setting the course for the next 4 years in San Francisco.
We need to be collaborating. We need to be convening. We need to be rowing in the same direction so that San Francisco can get back on track.
What are some of the highlights or interesting aspects of District 3, and why do you think District 3 is important?
District 3 is the greatest supervisorial district in America. It is the golden goose of San Francisco. It is the northeast corner of the city. It has some of the most historic and oldest neighborhoods in the city.
As seen in your background here, this is District 3, District 3 and District 6.
It has a connection to the water with Barbary Coast and the wharf. It has all the different makeup of the city, including Chinatown, Polk Gulch, Union Square, Financial District. So it is definitely a microcosm of the city.
It's the neighborhoods that usually you'll see on postcards and see in the media.
When the TV cameras show up, they come to District 3. And that's why it's critically important that we have strong leadership in that seat.
San Francisco grew out of the areas of District 3, right? The first boat that landed was at Portsmouth Square in Chinatown.
It is a truly an amazing place. It is very diverse. It is the economic engine of the city.
It's a really expansive district, a really important district. There's some studies that show up to 70% of our city's revenue comes out of District 3. It's that important.
So we play an important role for, the front door and the presence of who San Francisco and who we are as San Franciscans.
What makes you stand out from the other candidates?
I think what really sets me apart is, competence and expertise. That's what my race is about.
I am the deeply rooted neighborhood candidate in this race who's also competent, established attorney in this city.
I'm not waiting to get into office to do the work. I've been organizer over the past 10 years in District 3. This isn't a seat that we can afford to have someone get in there and try to learn on the job. This is a seat where we need someone who knows these neighborhoods already, knows the community leaders in the neighborhoods, the presidents of the neighborhood associations, the small businesses, knows the history and the background. I think that's what the voters of District 3 deserve. I think that's what they're asking for.
I come from an international background. I'm only in the city 2.5 years, so I'm new. That's usually seen as a potential negative, but I think it also permits me to see the city in a light that somebody who's been here all their time can't see.
But what really sets me apart is that I'm the only candidate in this race that have deep working experience in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors.
I'm also the only LGBT candidate on the ballot. I'm only the only Hispanic candidate on the ballot. I think we need more Hispanic voices in California. California is 50% Hispanic. The state started out with a constitution that was both in Spanish and English. And I think there's an underrepresentation, so that's also a difference.
Public safety is a huge theme. And the fact that I have stood up and said, I believe that we need to double down on our police department and we need to have the back of the rank and file officers.
It's easy to get involved all of a sudden in an election year, even to move to the district in an election year like we've had candidates to do. But to be there every year for this past decade, especially in really difficult years, difficult times like the pandemic, I think that's what really sets me apart.
I come from an entrepreneurial background. I'm used to being resourceful to get things done and being effective in getting things done. I started out with a development company, real estate development company in the state of Georgia that was focused on building walkable small towns where I would design the urban space. I would confection the financing, gather capital in order to get things done, get rezonings done. So, very involved in a lot of complexity and detail.
We really need to double down on clean and safe San Francisco, and that means having the back of our police department. And I'm proudly endorsed by several retired San Francisco police officers, including prominent officers in the Chinese American community, like former Deputy Chief Garrett Tom and Captain Bobby Yick.
I am somebody who really believes in the three-legged stool of making sure that we have, diverse stakeholders at the table. I think having that balanced backdrop of expertise and working in business and in development, working in nonprofit, not just starting it, but also running it successfully, as well as having been a city staff and a commissioner, so providing oversight on city departments and holding them accountable. These are all core skill sets, basic skill sets, I would even argue, that I think Board of Supervisors really need to be able to be effective oversight, for the city as a whole.
I come from urban design and architecture, so it's not just the corporate capacity, but rather the sensibility around how these things should be managed.
So what is one idea or policy that's been suggested by a competitor that you think is worthy of consideration?
One of my competitors, Ms. Sharon Lai, suggested is having a public safety liaison within the district, and I think that is very important.
Most of the candidates in this race, I think we all are frustrated by similar things, right? We all talk about public safety, clean streets, housing, homelessness. I also, of course, talk about the economic conditions. I'm not sure that I have heard many unique ideas from competitors.
I think something that we're all committed to is making sure that all of District 3 gets its resources, all of District 3 gets its attention.
Well, I think we all probably fall together on things regarding safety. And I don't think anyone has necessarily a negative idea on safety. I do think we have contrasting views in terms of how to get it done.
I will say that one of the ideas, actually an existing policy practice in some of the districts, particularly from Board of Supervisor Asha Safai, as well as Supervisor Rafael Mandelman, that they already institute is something that I would love to champion in our District 3. So, by the way, both of them have endorsed me, and they are 2 of my 8 Board of Supervisor endorsements. But both of them have a public safety liaison in their respective districts that it's funded slightly differently and structured differently. But for example, in Supervisor Safai's district, he has embedded his liaison within the police department. And the main role of that individual is to be the point of contact for coordinating across city departments when there is a public safety issue.
Whoever comes in has to know how to build coalitions, has to know how to deal with complexity, has to know how to deal with being practical. Sometimes one has to be very creative in getting a solution done because the amount of time even allotted during one legislature will not allow for substantial changes in that infrastructure or that bureaucratic infrastructure. So I think that's one of those things, being realistic about that.
there is I would say over the past few decades, there's been a tendency to focus on a few neighborhoods in District 3, and we forget about others. And I'll go back.
Yeah, what's an
I'll
example
go
of that?
back to that example of Lower Nob Hill, which I called out at the beginning, because people don't realize that. I think maybe people realize that Nob Hill is in District 3, but when they think of that, they think of, Huntington Park or the Fairmont or Grace Cathedral, which are incredible. But they don't realize that now District 3 goes all the way to Geary. It goes to the north side of Geary. And these are neighborhoods that are incredibly dense. These are neighborhoods that are a little bit more affordable than the rest of San Francisco, are relatively affordable. And so we have a lot of people living in Lower Nob Hill, and they're asking for support. They're asking for resources.
For example, I agree with Danny Sauter that we need more Cantonese-speaking police officers. I agree with Matt Susk in that we should look at adding a retired police officer to the police commission. Eduard Navarro believes that we can build housing without changing the character of our neighborhoods, or we can kind of build housing without you even noticing major changes. So there's a lot of great ideas there. The question is, who has the relationships in the community and who has the trust of the community to get those ideas off the finish line? And I think I stand head and shoulders above everyone on that.
So if you had a magic wand and it's the day after you're elected, but you can do one thing that you could get through that would make the biggest difference to residents in District 3, what would it be? What would you use your magic wand on?
Civil service reform. Right now, and this is going to require partnership with the mayor and my colleagues on the board, right now it takes way too long for the city to hire somebody, and it takes way too long for the city government to just manage its human capital.
That is an easy one. I would love to immediately fill back our downtown buildings, all of those vacancies that we have right now.
A design framework for the city. We need a design framework in the city so we can build as much housing as we want, and literally we could build as much housing as we want, but we don't have to resort to skyscrapers on the water.
If we're doing one thing, it's an incredibly difficult question, but the first thing that comes to mind, because I've been having a lot of conversations about this, is I want to introduce to District 3 a new special use district where we're encouraging more senior and family housing units. And in return for that, we're giving developers greater density, greater allowance. And we're saying that, if you want to go up an additional floor or two, you can do that in return for these priority types of housing units.
Then we could right size our government and we can be able to get in the talent that we need to really be an effective city, and to make sure that the city bureaucracy is responding to neighbors. Because right now there's a feeling that the various city departments are not super engaged with where the neighborhood and community are.
Class A buildings are about 20% down, but the rest of the Class B and C buildings are actually very much suffering. I would immediately fill those buildings with young, innovative companies that are good for our climate agenda. I would make sure that we immediately convert some of those Class B and C buildings that are appropriate to become residential uses, and make sure that we bring foot traffic back to downtown because, as we talked about earlier, the liveliness and the foot traffic in downtown really does have a huge impact on small businesses, especially in the nearby neighborhoods, Union Square, Polk, Chinatown, even North Beach. We really rely on that foot traffic.
There's a lack of attention to public space and architecture as a tool to resolve a lot of the issues that we're facing as a city. There are countless projects on the books and there's a fight between so-called progressives and moderates about housing. And I think neither side has a way to articulate what they're really wanting.
District 3 has the highest concentration of older adults of any district in San Francisco. It's also the fastest growing age group. And there's a lot of unique challenges around housing for seniors. And so I want us to build as much housing as possible, but I want that to be senior housing if possible. I want it to be family housing if possible. Families, even if they have the means to afford expensive housing in San Francisco, they're not able to stay in District 3 because there's not enough housing units that are 2 and 3 and 4 bedrooms. And those are the sorts of housing units that I want us to create. And I think introducing a special use district specific to District 3 would allow us to do that.
Paris is a city that is 106 square kilometers. San Francisco is 124. So more or less they're the same size. But Paris has 3 times the population of San Francisco. It's 3 times the population. It's about 2.5 million people. Now, you would say, well, so Paris should be a really tall city. It's not. We don't think of Paris as a tall city. We can build 82,000 units in the city. We wouldn't even notice if it's done well.
I'm running for the Board of Trustees because City College holds the key to solving San Francisco's toughest challenges.
If you care about safe streets and a fully staffed police department, care about City College.
Will you join me?
Do you consider San Francisco city government ineffective? Do you consider it corrupt? Does it suffer from corruption, in your opinion?
It's disturbing that over the last couple of years, we've seen scandal after scandal. I do think that we need a wholesale change in some of the ways that we do things, particularly contracting. We should have a public process.
I think sometimes we can mistake inefficiency for corruption. I do think we have incredible amounts of inefficiency.
It is in need of reform. It is in need of new leadership at many different levels.
I think we have a major accountability issue. I think that we have an issue of the efforts and a lot of the laws that we have to try to prevent the really bad things from happening is also negatively impacting the good players.
We have a $16 billion budget is insane. It's incredible wealth. Yet, how efficient is it in our spending? I think that brings up a lot of questions. And it brings up a lot of questions probably because I think the way that it was designed is beautiful. There's always an intent in San Francisco to make things democratic, to spread out the responsibility, to get a lot of voices, a lot of stakeholders involved. But that parliamentary way of running things becomes quite cumbersome and results in a lot of just friction and expense or lack of accountability.
You know, when we have small groups of people deciding who gets major contracts, that's just a recipe for potential corruption. So I think we need to continue efforts at greater accountability, transparency to improve this, because the reality is, when you go to City Hall, if you're a business or whatnot, and you have death by 10,000 permits, the unfortunate secret is it feels like city government has created a cartel which exists to benefit itself and doesn't help the interests of small businesses and ordinary residents. And that is a very complex problem. It did not happen overnight. It built up over decades. But I am prepared to partner with the mayor and other members of the board to pass some common sense reforms to try to get some improvement there.
There are parts of our government that are working really well. And I think it's incumbent upon us to find out what's working in some of those departments and take it over to the rest. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of duplicative work, right? You know, the fact that there's 9 different departments that touch homelessness, that there's multiple different programs that should be combined, that we have, you know, almost 200 different commissions and committees and working bodies and task force. So I am thankful that there, I think, are some serious efforts to make reform, to look at our commissions, to look at our charter. You know, this city and this giant bureaucracy of our $16 billion budget, nearly 40,000 city employees, you know, from time to time, it needs to be revised, it needs to be modified and edited. And I think there's some good people working on that right now.
We have what I would consider a very inefficient outcome, because what's happening is that we actually have a lot of like regulation and requirements as a nonprofit, you know, person that, you know, I've worked in the nonprofit sectors before. Some of the small nonprofits are very much burdened by a lot of the reporting requirements, but yet those reporting requirements are actually not preventing the really bad actors from still taking advantage of the system.
And I think our objectives, what I promote, my 3 main topics are: we need to save our public space, is be kind to our public space and reclaim it as part of everyone's use. We need to build with heart. We need to be able to, hey, let the market forces play out. 82,000 or 160,000 units, really, it's not a problem. But the problem is we have to make it in a way that is enhancing of San Francisco's beauty. And then through all of that, I mean, it's a little bit better these past couple of months with how national politics are playing out. But in reality, we have to be very proud of San Francisco and defend our values.
I think it's absolutely important that in our current financial situation within the city. Yes, we have to grow back our revenues and make sure that we're no longer in a budget deficit, but we also have to be smarter and more responsible when it comes to our expenditures. And this is where my expertise and my background will come into play. You previously asked about, how I am different from the other candidates. Honestly, I think a lot of us are frustrated by similar issues at the city, and I think we all want change. But this race isn't about who cares the most. It's about who can actually deliver the change that the city really needs on the good government side.
And final question I want to ask you is just something very relevant to District 3, relevant to the whole city, which is something I'm really interested in, City College of San Francisco. City College of San Francisco has been under tough times. There was a lot of people who fought to get a branch campus in Chinatown, which is in District 3.
Right.
What do you think the importance of city colleges to District 3 residents? What should we be doing differently when it seems like that campus is underutilized, to say it mildly, in Chinatown?
I'm someone who really believes in education. I actually am somebody who also worked on the universal child care measure, and I supported the Free City College. That campus is so important to our community. I am someone who believes that City College is there to provide lifelong learning, to provide opportunities to continue to have upward mobility.
So City College is enormously important and valuable for District 3, in particular the Chinatown campus. City College is not only a place where you can go and get your transfer credits and go on to UC or Cal State, but it's a community resource.
We're always looking for space. We're always looking for places to hold meetings, to hold talks. And for City College to have that and not use it to its full ability, I think is unfortunate.
And so I really believe that access to education to minority communities is extremely important. Primarily in the Chinatown campus. And it's not just that, because we also have a nearby campus on 4th Street, which, I think, again, as a city planner, I'd like to think about things more than just beyond district lines, right? We should be thinking about our district as District 36 and District 35, right? So we're adjacent. But the importance of City College is not just in providing, people who are currently trying to get additional training, because I do think that that's really important. But it's also, for example, a lot of people rely on the Cantonese classes at City College to have that tool so that they can communicate with their community members.
So it's a resource for new immigrants to learn English. It's a resource for folks who want to learn a trade or a skill. It's a resource for recreation. And I think all those things are vitally important. District 3 is the densest district in the city. The location of that campus is fantastic for public transit, for walkability. But I think City College does need to do a better job of marketing and branding itself to the Chinese community, to other communities. And that could really, really help City College. And I will stand as a partner with City College to make that happen.
It can be a space for the neighborhood to gather. And I think that exposes it to the residents to make them realize that, hey, this is also a place to come and take classes. We have one of our volunteers who's taking English classes there, and they're having a fantastic experience. But there's too many members that are right there in Chinatown, right there in North Beach or Russian Hill, who don't know about it as a resource. And it needs to be more open. It needs to be more embraced by the community. And that's something I'd like to partner on you with.
I think the world of education generally is evolving. It's changing. The cachet or the value of certain studies and what they mean to your one's profession is also evolving. There are many new industries coming up. So I think having a city college that has a wide array of potential coursework and different lines of study is very positive.
City College was founded in 1935 to be the pipeline of critical workers for a changing city.
Sure.
So all of these problems, whether it is public safety, whether it's parts of civic disorder or homelessness or the drug crisis, it was supposed to supply critical workers to do that. And it's a lot easier to grow your own homegrown talent who cares about the community than import those from elsewhere to come in. And so that's why I think it's an underutilized, overlooked solution to a lot of these problems in the long term. Let's grow the people who care about the city, who can be the critical workers in city government to improve our city.
Right. Well, I think that's without a doubt, and I think that's quite beautiful. And if we look at educational systems throughout the world, ones who promote that critical workers or that professional middle ground can become very efficient. Germany has an incredible example about even at the high school level, it already divides into 3 tracks, whether you're going for a college degree or you're going for more of a technical degree or simply entering the workforce. I think without a doubt, but I think a lot of that also has to be seen holistically within the entire paradigm that is the city.
Well, thank you so much. Good luck on your candidacy. Board of Supervisors, District 3. Eduard, thanks for joining us on We Are San Francisco.
Thank you. We Are San Francisco. Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Okay, thank you for joining us on We Are San Francisco.
Thank you very much. Appreciate this.
Thank you, Ben. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Ben, and We Are San Francisco.
All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of We Are San Francisco. A big thanks to Danny Sauter, Eduard Navarro, Moe Jamil, and Sharon Lai for sharing their thoughts and ideas for District 3. It's always inspiring to hear from those who are passionate about making a difference in our city. And hey, if you enjoyed this conversation, stay tuned. We've got more candidates from other districts coming up soon, so you won't want to miss that. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and keep an eye out for those episodes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.